Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to a time when beekeeping wasn't a quirky side hustle or a soothing weekend hobby. It was a full contact sport, minus the helmet, plus a whole lot of stinging. You, yes, you, are a medieval beekeeper. Congratulations. You've just chosen a profession that involves angering thousands of tiny winged creatures armed with biological hypodermic needles, without any protective gear whatsoever. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up with a kind of grogginess that can only come from sleeping on straw, poked with last week's regrets. It's early, far too early, and the sun has just barely begun to squint over the thatched rooftops. The rooster crows as if he invented mornings. You curse him gently under your breath and reach for your boots, which, for reasons unknown, seem to be hosting a spider family reunion. Perfect. You dress in layers, not for warmth, but for moral support. Your tunic is linen, patched and threadbare. Your trousers sag. You throw on a cloak that smells like smoke and sheep. There's no veil, no gloves, no bee suit with reassuring mesh. Just skin, courage, and the foolish optimism that maybe, just maybe, today, the bees will be in a good mood. Spoiler, they won't be. As you step outside, the crisp morning air slaps your face with all the gentleness of a brick. You trudge toward your hives, which are nestled along the edge of the woods, close enough for the bees to forage, far enough that the villagers won't complain when they start stinging children again. You can already hear the buzzing, faint and ominous, like a tiny angry orchestra warming up for a performance called Let's Ruin This Man's Day. You approach slowly, heart thumping. Your tools? A dull knife, a crude smoker made from a hollowed out horn, and a pouch of dried moss and cow dung, because nothing says peace offering like setting something mildly toxic on fire. There's no set method to opening a hive in the 13th century. You just kind of go for it. You kneel, inhale the sweet sour scent of wax, honey, and doom, and start puffing smoke into the entrance. The bees, in theory, get sleepy. In practice, they get insulted. The smoke rises lazily, mingling with the morning fog and your slowly escalating panic. You lift the lid, instant regret. They erupt like furious glitter, swarming your face, your hands, your hair. You try to remain calm, which is hard when 50 creatures are attempting to insert venom into your eyebrows. One flies into your ear. Another decides your nostril is a nice place to explore. You hum softly, an old beekeeper's trick to keep yourself from screaming. It doesn't work, but it gives the goats nearby a good show. You keep smoking them, muttering apologies, bargaining with God, and gently prying apart the combs. Honey glistens in the light, beautiful, golden, worth its weight in medieval bread. You want to marvel at it, but instead you're counting stings and wondering if the swelling on your cheek will scare off potential suitors. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers understood the full structure of a hive. Some believe they recognized the queen's central role. Others think they thought the colony was governed by a tiny insect council that met after dark to plot mischief. What's certain is that beekeeping knowledge was passed down like folklore through mumbled instructions, cryptic drawings, and lots of pointing at welts. There are no honey extractors, no decapping knives, no strainers. You simply cut the comb, crush it with your hands or a stone, and pray that the bees don't notice you've just murdered their living room. Your hands are sticky, your face is puffy, and your sleeves have become a smorgasbord for interested insects. The buzzing grows louder. You look up, and there it is, a bee no bigger than a grain of rice hovering just above your nose. You lock eyes. She tilts slightly, perhaps considering your life choices. Then, with the clinical precision of a surgeon, she stings you right on the bridge of your nose. You curse. She dies. It's tragic. It's petty. It's medieval beekeeping. There's no real cure for stings either. Some say to smear mud. Others suggest vinegar. A few brave souls swear by goose fat, mixed with crushed thyme. You try them all over the next few hours, looking like someone who lost a fight with a salad. But here's the thing, you keep going, because honey is liquid gold, not just sweet but valuable, used in medicine, mead making, and as a general bribe to anyone with power. Monks want it, apothecaries need it. Your neighbor wants to trade it for a half cured ham and a kiss on the cheek. Maybe both. And so, day after day, you crawl back to the hives. The bees don't thank you. They don't even remember you. But you remember them. Every welt, every swollen lip, every moment you flailed your arms like a drunken maypole dancer trying to get one out of your tunic. You remember the sound of their wings as you close your eyes at night, faint, furious, and oddly hypnotic. No, there's no protective suit, but there's resilience, there's pride, and there's the slightly unhinged joy of holding up a comb, dripping with wild honey, and whispering, "Worth it." You are already regretting being alive this morning, and the swelling on your nose hasn't gone down. It now resembles a sad medieval turnip, and your left eye can barely squint through the puffiness. As you rub a poultice of vinegar, crushed mint, and what might be goose droppings across your cheek, you whisper a soft prayer to Saint Gobnate, the patron saint of beekeepers. She probably understands. Maybe she was stung in the nose once too. The bees are still angry. You don't know why. They have food, sun, and no predators today, unless you count your clumsy self. But they buzz with a kind of furious choreography that suggests they've had it with your whole taking honey while smiling nervously approach. There's a common belief in the village that bees can smell fear. You suspect they're actually just good at smelling everything: sweat, breath, regret. You reek of all three. You shuffle back to the hives after lunch, which was a slice of hard bread, some leek broth, and whatever warmth you could glean from leaning over the fire without singeing your eyebrows. Again, you've decided it's time to check the second hive. It's an older one, made of coiled straw and coated in mud. A skep, they call it. Handmade, uneven, and charmingly terrible at keeping the bees inside when they're upset. Which they are. Always. You lean in, puff the smoker, and lift. It's heavier than expected, which is either a good sign, lots of honey, or a very bad one, wasps. You hesitate. You've heard stories. Wasps moving in, killing the queen, eating the larvae, then hanging around like it's their new vacation home. You slowly peek in. Bees, thank heavens, but they are not pleased to see you. One lands directly on your lower lip, pauses like it's considering your sins, and decides yes, you are worth punishing. A sting on the lip. It's a special kind of misery. You yelp, causing the cow, tethered nearby, to look up, vaguely insulted. You've scared off a passing chicken and the neighbor's toddler. You do your best to compose yourself as your lip balloons like a medieval pastry. By now, your face is so swollen, you're sure if you smiled too hard, your left eye might shut completely. Still, you persevere. Because honey doesn't collect itself. The hive is full. Rich combs hang like golden curtains, thick with promise. You cut them carefully. Honey drips onto your hand, down your arm, and into your sleeve. The bees don't like that. They consider the honey theirs, which is fair. You, however, consider it rent. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers considered themselves owners of bees or just borrowers of their work. Some records describe hives as property, passed down in wills. Others depict bees as more mystical, free, roaming, with their own opinions about where to live and whom to sting. You stand there, arms full of comb, bees still circling your head like angry cherubs. There is no fast way to carry comb back to the cottage without attracting even more attention. The honey scent is strong, delicious to you, irresistible to bees, wasps, curious dogs, and one overly friendly beggar who once licked your sleeve. You trudge back slowly. A few bees ride with you, tucked into your hood. You know they're there, but there's nothing to do but accept their presence and hope they don't panic. One does. It crawls along your collarbone, then stings the soft underside of your arm just as you open the door. Inside, the cottage is blessedly dim. Your spouse looks up from mending a boot and immediately says, "You got stung again?" You don't answer. The answer is always yes. You set down the honeycomb on a slate slab and begin the crushing. Hands sticky, bees still buzzing around the windows, and the constant threat of your toddler dipping fingers into the bowl. You shoo them gently. They ignore you, grab a handful of comb, and chew it like medieval gum. It's adorable. Also unsanitary. The house fills with the scent of honey, sweet, rich, and tinged with wax. It sticks to your hair, your clothes, and your already doomed tunic. Tomorrow, every flying insect within 3 villages will want to follow you to work. You sigh. This is the life. No gloves, no suit, just you, your weirdly pulsating lip, and a profession that might be the earliest recorded form of occupational masochism. But still, you feel pride, because there's nothing quite like honey straight from your own hive. Sure, your body is covered in tiny welts, you've inhaled a bit too much smoke, and your shirt now doubles as a fly trap. But as you spoon the first golden dribble into a small jar made from reused eggshell and goat bladder, you realize this is treasure, real, edible, barterable treasure. And that's something to keep you warm right before a bee, somehow still lurking in your undertunic, decides it's time for one last sting right above your rib cage. You jump, curse, and knock over the stool. Your child claps in delight. The dog starts barking. You lie on the floor, wondering why your ancestors didn't choose a less hazardous profession, like dragon slaying. But the combs are full, the jars are filling, and the bees, well, they'll forgive you. Eventually. Maybe. By now, you've accepted that pain is part of your morning routine. Some people wake with a stretch and a yawn. You wake with a swollen lip, a welt on your rib, and a faint buzzing in your ear that might be real. Or just your nervous system giving up. The sun's climbing higher, but not warmly. It's autumn now, and the air has that sharp little edge that nips at your fingers and reminds you that winter is coming, which means the bees are even more irritable. They can feel the season shifting, and they don't like it. You've got 3 full skeps left to check today. Skeps. Those domed straw hives you wove last spring while muttering curse words and wishing your fingers were more nimble and less stubby. They look charming from a distance, like little straw hats for giants. But up close, they're heavy, fragile, and always full of things that want to defend their sugary treasure with aggressive zeal. You approach the next one slowly, like it owes you money. There's movement at the base. A single bee shoots out, zips around your head, and disappears into the woods like it's got urgent business elsewhere. You puff your smoker a few times. Dried herbs, moss, and last week's goat droppings make for a pungent bouquet, and crouch down for the inspection. You crack open the skep, and it happens. One of those stings, not a casual, whoops, got too close to the thorax kind of sting. No. This one goes straight up your tunic, from the hem, and settles somewhere personal. The bee gets caught in the folds of your under tunic, confused, and like most confused things, it panics. You feel the sting somewhere between your dignity and your soul. You freeze. You curse silently. You lock eyes with the goat nearby, who now knows far too much about you. You dance. Oh, you dance. Medieval breakdancing, barefoot in the grass, slapping yourself with one hand, fumbling at your waist with the other, while trying not to crush the combs already tucked under your arm. From a distance, you probably look like you're possessed by a very enthusiastic spirit. From up close, it's mostly just pain and humiliation in linen form. Eventually, the bee gives its life, as they always do. You hobble back to your stool and slump onto it, groaning. That area's going to swell. Great. There's no ointment for this. Just sympathy, which you do not get from your neighbor who's just wandered up, saw your little jig, and now won't stop laughing. You courting the bees again? He snorts, tossing you a half-rotten apple. You consider throwing it back at his head, but decide the apple's more useful than vengeance right now. Historians still argue whether medieval folks believed bees had a kind of moral compass. Some swore bees could sense wickedness, sting liars and cheats while leaving the honest folk alone. If that's true, then today has been a loud accusation against your character. You eat the apple. Sort of. It's soft in the middle and crunchy. In places it shouldn't be, but it's food. And the buzzing continues. You glance back at the hive. You still need to collect comb, which means more smoke, more praying, and absolutely no sudden movements that might lead to further trauma. You try again. This time, with a bit more caution, you manage to extract a comb or two. They're perfect, waxed hexagons filled with thick, dark golden honey. The bees around them are calmer now, lulled by the smoke or simply tired of dealing with you. One lands on your thumb. She just sits there. You stare at each other. Ah, please don't, you whisper. She doesn't. A rare moment of mercy. You carry the combs back to your cottage, one eye always scanning for more airborne ambushes. On the way, you pass by 3 chickens, a wandering cat, and your youngest child digging a hole for reasons unknown. Your tunic is sticky. Your sleeves are covered in bee guts. Your dignity is somewhere back by the skep. And still, you feel oddly proud, because this is what you do. You harvest sweetness from pain. You barter joy for discomfort. You risk your eyebrows so others can taste sunshine on a cold winter morning. Inside the cottage, your partner glances at you. You get stung again? You raise one eyebrow and slowly sit down with the kind of careful grace that only someone recently attacked in the underregions can manage. Your child looks up and says, "You smell like smoke and bee butt." You nod solemnly. "That's the smell of a job well done." You crush the new combs into a pot, wax mixing with honey, forming a thick golden paste. You'll strain it later, through cloth, then pour it into clay jars sealed with beeswax and hope. You might even save a little to smear on bread tonight, if you feel like spoiling yourself. Outside, the sun is beginning to dip. You can hear the bees settling, their furious little bodies returning to sleep. preparing to regroup for tomorrow's assault. You stretch, sore and stiff, and lightly traumatized. You've survived another day of medieval beekeeping. Barely. You wake up the next morning with a sense of foreboding. Not just the usual today I'll get stung in a new location dread, but something more existential. Your lips gone down slightly. The welt near your ribs is a gentle throb now, like a tiny drumbeat reminding you that bees have opinions, and they're not shy about expressing them through venom. You sit up and hear it. Rain. Not a torrential downpour, but that slow, medieval drizzle that seems designed to soak you precisely enough to be annoying, but not enough to justify staying inside. You sigh. Bees don't like rain. Then again, neither do you. Still, you gear up. A loose hood, wool leggings, and your most faithful tunic, which now resembles a historical document of every sting you've endured. There's a rip under the arm, two permanent honey stains on the front, and what might be wax or despair hardened around the collar. You trudge to the hives with a bucket in one hand and your smoker in the other. The smoke's harder to keep lit in the damp. You stuff in extra moss. Throw in a pinch of dried thyme. Someone once said, it calms the bees. Someone also once said, cats steal your breath at night. So you take that with a grain of salt. As you approach the first hive, you realize it's humming louder than usual. Not in a we're feeling productive way, more like a we're considering murder sort of tone. The drizzle has made them grumpy. Their wings are damp. Their pollen runs have been delayed. You are now the physical embodiment of everything that's gone wrong in their lives. Still, you lift the lid and immediately regret it. They surge out like tiny knights defending a wax fortress. You duck, wave your arms, puff smoke, like your life depends on it, because it sort of does, and somehow manage to calm them down enough to peek inside. No comb harvesting today, not with that mood. So instead, you decide to perform a basic hive check. Are they storing enough for winter? Are there any signs of disease? Is the queen still alive? Or has she gone rogue and joined a traveling wasp cult? Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers had a good understanding of bee disease. Some say they recognized patterns, hives that failed, bees that flew strangely, but chalked it up to curses or divine punishment. Others believe they had practical wisdom, passed down in whispers and soot-covered journals no one ever dusted. You peer inside and something seems off. The wax looks odd, soggy, maybe, or melted. One comb has collapsed under its own weight, and bees crawl all over it like confused construction workers. You frown. Don't be foul-brewed, you mutter. Of course, in your time, there's no name for it. Just the awful knowledge that sometimes a hive goes wrong, and then everything goes wrong. The honey smells sour. The bees get sluggish. And worst of all, the hive begins to rot from the inside out. You tap the side gently. The bees barely respond. A few buzz lazily. One falls off a comb and doesn't get back up. You exhale through your nose. There's no face mask, no gloves. Just you, and the grim awareness that this hive may be doomed. And then there's the real worry. The smell. Rotting honey smells strange, sweet but wrong, like fruit that sat in a sunbeam too long. And in medieval villages, a strange smell coming from your house could mean many things, none of them good, especially if you're the beekeeper. People are already suspicious of your job. You handle bees. You make smoke. You walk around smelling like burnt time and regret. Some of them think you whisper to insects. Others say you feed the bees secrets. And that's why they protect your garden while stinging their children. One more strange smell, and you could be hauled in front of the local priest for a very awkward "Are you a witch?" conversation. So you act fast. You remove the offending comb, crush it carefully, and bury it far from your cottage, marking the spot with a rock and a quiet prayer. You return to the hive and remove the dead brood. The bees protest, half heartedly. You know this hive may not survive the winter. You give them extra honey from a healthy hive, hoping to boost their stores. Maybe it'll help, maybe not. You don't say much on the way home. Rain is dripping from your hood. Your shoes are soaked, and you're covered in that smell, warm rot and anxious sweat. You pass the tavern and hear someone mutter "bee witch" under their breath. You smile tightly. You get home and immediately change. Your spouse raises an eyebrow. Bad one? You nod. Rotten comb. They nod back. No further explanation needed. Later, you sit by the fire, chewing on a crust of bread soaked in yesterday's honey. It tastes like the sun used to feel. Sweet, bright, a little sharp. You wonder if the hive will make it, if the other bees will survive the coming frost, if you'll have enough honey to trade for the things you need: salt, oil, maybe even a new pair of shoes. You wonder if the villagers will ever stop whispering, but for now, you're warm, you're dry, and you haven't been stung since mid morning. Which, in your line of work, is what counts as a good day. You wake to smoke. Not the pleasant, comforting kind that suggests breakfast and hearth. No, this is the panic kind, the acrid scent of something smoldering where it definitely shouldn't be. You leap up, thwack your knee on the stool, and stumble barefoot across the dirt floor. The back door is ajar. Through it, you see a faint trail of gray curling upward from the hives. You grab your cloak, still crusted with honey, still somehow damp, and sprint into the morning fog. It isn't a fire, thank the saints, just your smoker. Left too close to a pile of straw, it's now hissing its last breath like a dying dragon. You stamp it out with one foot and glare at it as if it is responsible for everything going wrong this week. You'll need more fuel. Your smoker, a crude iron bowl welded to a wooden handle, is only as effective as whatever herbs, moss, or animal byproduct you manage to stuff inside. And today, that means gathering from the garden, the forest edge, and that one pile behind the goat shed that smells like both hope and despair. You crouch beside a clump of dried mushrooms, eyes scanning for twigs, bark, anything resinous. The air is still moist from last night's rain, and most of your usual supplies feel more like wet socks than fire starter. Eventually, you find some dried lavender stalks, a handful of moss baked dry by the sun, and, because desperate times call for desperate measures, a small bundle of sheep dung collected earlier with precisely zero dignity. You pack it into the smoker, strike your flint, and coax it to life. The smell? Unholy. But the bees hate it more than you do, and that's what matters. Smoke has always been your first line of defense. The idea is simple. Bees, sensing smoke, believe their hive is under threat of fire. In response, they gorge themselves on honey, preparing for an emergency evacuation, and become sluggish and less likely to sting. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers understood this biological reaction or just chalked it up to sorcery and luck. What's undeniable is that smoking the hive has been practiced for millennia. The tools may change, but the strategy remains. Smoke first, hope later. You approach the hive slowly, letting the first tendrils of your aromatic horror seep into the straw dome. The buzzing intensifies. Confused, agitated, but doesn't escalate into all out war. Not yet. You puff rhythmically, a little at the entrance, a little under the lid. You hum softly, a habit picked up from an old monk who claimed bees respond to gentle tones. He also claimed to have seen a bee spell Latin words into wax once, so grains of salt all around. Once you feel the hive is suitably dazed, you lift the lid. It's a risky dance every time. Too little smoke and the bees attack. Too much, and you could suffocate half the hive. Today, you hit the sweet spot. The bees buzz lazily. One bumps into your forehead, another lands on your thumb and just sits there. No stinger, no warning, just tiny feet tickling your skin like the world's angriest feather. Inside, the combs are full and glistening. This is the good stuff. Late summer honey, rich with the flavor of wildflowers, orchard clover, and possibly the neighbor's overgrown mint patch. You slice carefully, balancing the combs on a wooden board smeared with beeswax from past harvests. A bee crawls into your ear. You pause. Close one eye. Hold your breath. Do not swat. It buzzes. Then buzzes more. Then, perhaps deciding your ear is not a suitable long-term rental, backs out and flies off. You exhale slowly and continue. By now, your clothes have absorbed the smoke. You smell like a medieval barbecue. It clings to your skin, your hair, and even the creases in your elbow. The scent repels most people and attracts every curious animal within sniffing distance, including the neighbor's pig, who trots over mid-harvest, sniffs your honeycomb, and lets out a grunt that you interpret as both envy and concern. You shoo it away gently. Not today, Wilfred. You finish collecting what you can and leave behind a generous portion for the bees. You know better than to strip the hive bare. Starving them would mean losing the colony, and you've worked too hard for that. Back inside, the cottage is already warm from the morning fire. You set the combs on a clean board and begin the slow, sticky process of crushing them. Honey oozes between your fingers, thick and golden. Beeswax clings to your nails. You hum again, same melody, different key. Your partner walks in, sniffs the air, and wrinkles their nose. Is that lavender and sheep? You nod proudly. New blend, very effective. They raise an eyebrow. You're banned from the bed until you wash. Fair. You finish the harvest and store the honey in a few clay jars sealed with wax. One jar will go to the local innkeeper, payment for letting you trade at the next fair. Another to the apothecary, who swears honey cures everything from gout to heartbreak. The rest you'll keep, share, or barter through winter. As you scrape the last of the wax into a bowl for candle making, a bee, one of yours probably, flies through the window and lands near the hearth. It sits there. You sit beside it. Two tired workers staring into the flames, reeking of smoke and work and quiet victory. It's not glamorous, but it's real. And sometimes, when the wind is kind and the bees don't sting your elbow mid-sneeze, it's almost beautiful. The morning begins not with sunlight or songbirds or the gentle whisper of wind through the trees. No, it begins with screaming. Specifically, your neighbor's screaming. A high-pitched, panicked wail that suggests either childbirth, fire, or, most likely in your line of work, an accidental bee encounter of the worst kind. You stumble out the door, half-dressed, a boot on one foot, a sock on the other, clutching your belt like a man trying to hold onto both dignity and mobility. Down the lane, your neighbor Egbert is flailing around in his cabbage patch, shirtless and covered in bees. You jog toward him, already sighing. Did you try to pet them again? you call out. He shrieks something unintelligible and dives into a nearby rain barrel. Typical. Swarm season. You should have seen it coming. The signs were there: fat bees, queen cells forming, a rising tension in the hives like a tavern just before a brawl. When a colony gets too crowded or the bees get restless, they decide to split. The old queen leaves, taking half the workforce with her, and off they go in search of a new home. Preferably not Egbert's cabbage. You jog back to your hives, heart pounding. Sure enough, there it is. A massive, buzzing cloud above your strongest colony, swirling like angry smoke, moving slowly through the air in a glorious, terrifying arc. Swarming is one of nature's strangest performances. The bees aren't angry, not yet. They're focused, united, driven by a single instinct: relocate and rebuild. But you can't just let them go. That swarm is half your income, half your winter food, and at least 50% of the stingers you've come to respect. You need to get them back. You run into your cottage and grab the essentials: a cowbell, a battered pan, a stick, and a cloth sack. These are not professional tools. These are desperation instruments. Historians still argue whether banging pots and ringing bells during a swarm actually does anything, or if it's just a panicked human's way of feeling less powerless. Some swear the noise confuses the bees or causes them to settle more quickly. Others suggest the bees are completely indifferent and just don't like your fashion choices. Still, you bang that pan like your life depends on it. You follow the swarm down the lane, clanging and calling, trying to keep pace with the floating cloud of insects that are, quite frankly, making better time than you. They drift over rooftops, pause near a tree, and finally, cluster on a low-hanging branch, forming a throbbing, seething ball of bees the size of a toddler. You sigh in relief. At least they've picked a reachable spot. Now comes the hard part. You approach slowly. The branch sways slightly, heavy with bees. You can see the queen in the center, surrounded by her loyal minions. They're calm now, docile, focused. Swarming bees aren't usually aggressive. They've got bigger things to worry about than you, but you're still careful. You spread your sack beneath the branch. Then, with one practiced motion, you smack the branch with your stick and watch as the entire bee ball drops like a nightmare fruit into the sack. A few stragglers buzz around your head, confused. You tie the sack gently and begin the walk back home. You've done it. You've caught your swarm. You smile. Then you hear buzzing from inside your tunic. Apparently, a few bees didn't get the memo about relocating peacefully. One is now crawling across your chest, another exploring your armpit, and a third has made it all the way to your lower back. You freeze. Don't swat. Don't move. Don't scream. You take one slow, deliberate step, another. You can feel tiny legs dancing across your ribs. You make it to the hive and gently open the sack, emptying the new swarm into an empty skep. They tumble out in a golden wave, immediately beginning to explore their new home. You back away, slowly, then drop your cloak, your tunic, your last shreds of pride, and dance around your yard, half naked, trying to get the bees out. Your partner opens the door, sees you twirling like a madman in your linen undershorts, and just closes the door again. Fair, eventually the bees calm. You sit on a rock, disheveled, stung once or twice, but victorious. The swarm is saved. Your income is protected. Egbert has stopped screaming. For now. Inside, you wash your face in a bowl of cold water and sigh deeply. Another day, another dance with death. You think about the swarm, about how thousands of bees just decided to leave and start over. No warning, no regrets. Just a queen and a dream. There's something admirable about that. Something wild. Something ancient. You scrape a bit of honey from your sleeve, taste it, and whisper to no one in particular, "Let's not do that again tomorrow." By the next morning, your body feels like a badly packed hay bale, bruised in strange places, sore in others, and vaguely sticky in all the wrong areas. You stretch, yawn, and immediately regret both. The stings from yesterday's swarm dance have puffed up overnight. Your side itches, your elbow creaks, and you're pretty sure a bee sting on your hip has migrated into your dreams because you distinctly remember fighting off a hornet the size of a goat. Still, there's no time to sulk. It's swarm season, which means even your bees don't want to hang around you. You step outside with a cup of weak herbal tea and survey your kingdom. The new swarm, settled in the skep you frantically prepared yesterday, seems calm. You tiptoe over and peer through a gap in the straw. Bees are crawling industriously inside, patching wax, fanning their wings, doing whatever it is bees do when they're not stinging your spleen. Good. One less emergency. But as you turn to check the others, you hear a familiar sound, the low collective whom of a hive on edge. Not angry exactly, just indecisive, like a tavern full of drunks trying to choose whether to sing or fight. And then you spot it, another swarm, high up this time, nestled in a tree that absolutely wasn't there yesterday. You squint. Nope, it's definitely been there forever. You're just tired, and possibly concussed from the washtub lid you stepped on last night in the dark. You stare at the bees. They're just hanging there, a living clump the size of a watermelon, dangling 20 feet above your head, swaying gently in the breeze like a sticky chandelier of doom. No cowbell this time, no pan, just strategy. You grab a ladder, which, being medieval, is more of a shaky assemblage of splinters, held together by divine hope. You prop it against the tree and give it a gentle kick to test its stability. It immediately wobbles and drops a nail. Great. You climb anyway. Because what else can you do? Let the swarm go? Watch half your workforce and winter income float into the woods to set up a rival honey enterprise behind the monastery. You reach the branch, panting, every rung of the ladder sending tremors into your calves. The bees buzz softly, that same focused hum. You tie a sack around your shoulder, reach out, and brace the branch with your elbow. This time, you're going to be smart, gentle, precise. You shake the branch and immediately regret every choice that led to this moment. The bees drop, most into your sack, some into your sleeve, a generous number directly down your tunic. You let out a strangled gasp, then clutch the ladder with the grim determination of a man trying not to die in a very stupid way. You descend the ladder like it's made of glass and apologies. Each step a symphony of creaks and bee-tinged adrenaline. Once on the ground, you do the now familiar bee removal dance, stripping layers in a flurry of linen and mild profanity. You toss the tunic into the grass, stomp your boots, and whisper panicked prayers as one bee finally exits from behind your knee. You manage to rehome the new swarm into a second skep, still breathing heavily. Your body's a patchwork of welts. Your back itches in that unreachable spot that medieval massage tools, i.e., sticks, can't quite reach. And your pride? Long gone, possibly with the first swarm. You sit on a stump, shirtless and exhausted, and sip from your now cold tea. It tastes like sage and bad decisions. Still, the hives are full again. You've got 2 new colonies in place, and, miracle of miracles, only 5 new stings. One of them, however, is dangerously close to your armpit, and you suspect it will impact how nobly you can wave tomorrow. Historians still argue about how often medieval beekeepers chased swarms. Some records suggest they'd trek miles, following their bees like strange buzzing shepherds. Others claim folks simply let swarms go, viewing them as nature's way of saying, "Not today, pal." You? You chase every last one because you can't afford not to. Honey isn't just food, it's money, it's medicine, it's a reputation, it's something sweet in a world that so often isn't. The rest of the day passes in a sticky haze. You check the other hives, feed the weaker ones with leftover comb, and patch a broken skep with mud, straw, and a quiet mutter about how you really should have become a thatcher like your cousin. As evening falls, you collapse beside the fire, scratching your arms, smelling of sweat and beeswax and something vaguely herbal. Your partner places a bowl of onion soup in front of you and asks, "How many this time?" You hold up one hand, then two fingers. They sigh. "And how many got into your pants?" You shrug. "That's not a no." You slurp the soup. It burns your tongue. You don't care. Outside, the bees are settling in. Inside, you finally stop scratching. The house creaks. The hearth flickers. And as you drift towards sleep, the sound of bees still hums in your ears, not angrily. Just there. Like they've moved in. Like they're part of you now. Which, let's be honest, they kind of are. You wake up with a sneezing fit. Not from dust. Not from pollen. No, this is the special kind of sneeze reserved for those who have, knowingly or not, slept next to a piece of beeswax. Turns out, your partner tucked a chunk under your pillow, hoping it would help with your stings. Sweet gesture. Terrible outcome. Now your face smells like melted candle, and you're starting the day with a nose that could summon geese. Still, you drag yourself out of bed and straight into your work tunic, the one permanently stiff with honey and damp, in the cuffs from unknown, probably regrettable sources. It clings like it has opinions. Outside, the sun's risen high and the air hums with that late summer heaviness. You stretch your arms, wince at the tender sting marks on your ribs, and scan the hives. Most seem calm. No swarming, no dramatic cloud formations, no Egbert flailing in the distance. That's already a win. But something's off. One of the hives is quiet. Too quiet. You walk over and press your ear to the side of the skep. No buzz, no wings, just stillness. You pry open the lid gently, heart thudding. Inside, silence. Comb after comb, empty. No bees, no brood, just a few wax moths fluttering around like they own the place. Wax moths, the scourge of the beekeeper. Uninvited guests that chew through comb, defecate in the cells, and leave behind silky tunnels of destruction, like if moths and vandals had a baby, and you left the front door open. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers had a clear understanding of hive pests. Some sources suggest they knew about wax moths, ants, and even rodents moving in. Others describe bee curses, blaming spirits or malicious neighbors. Personally, you're leaning toward blaming wax moths and Egbert just to be safe. You sit back on your heels, staring at the devastation. All that work, all those stings, and now a hollow shell full of webs and regret. You know what you have to do. You carry the skep away from the others, place it in the fire pit, and set it alight. The straw catches quickly. The smell of burning wax rises, a little sweet, a little bitter. You stand there, watching flames curl around the ruined hive, and try not to feel like you're burying a friend. Later, you walk the perimeter of your hives with a new sense of caution. You check each skep for signs of pests. wax dust, moth larvae, odd holes in the comb. You tighten the lids, patch the bases, and scatter handfuls of ashes around the ground to deter ants. Every step is slow, deliberate, protective, because now you know just how easily a strong hive can vanish. You head back to the cottage to collect fresh straw. You're going to start a new skep, and that means weaving. Weaving skeps is a task that requires patience, a strong back, and fingers that haven't been recently stung by 5 bees and a hornet pretending to be a bee. You gather your straw, soak it briefly to make it pliable, and settle down with a curved needle made from bone. The weaving is repetitive, spiraling outward, coil, stitch, tug, over and over. It's almost meditative. If meditation included the occasional stabbing splinter and a chicken trying to peck your ankles. Your partner walks by at one point and says, "You know, normal people make baskets." You grunt and keep weaving. By midday, you finish the base. Your fingers ache. Your knees crack like dry wood every time you stand, but the skep is shaping up nicely, tighter than the last one, a bit more symmetrical. Almost like you know what you're doing. Almost. You leave it to dry in the sun and spend the rest of the afternoon cleaning your tools. Your smoker's nearly out of moss, so you restock. Your knife needs sharpening, so you run it across the whetstone until it glints in the light. And then you rest. Not because you're done, never that, but because the bees are quiet. The sun is setting, and your knees have begun making little protest noises every time you breathe too hard. You sit by the garden, sipping nettle tea, watching the last golden rays brush the tops of the skeps. A bee drifts past your face. She pauses in front of you, just hovering. You nod at her. She nods back. Probably. You think about that empty hive, the wax moss, the way it all unraveled while you slept. And then you think about the new skep drying in the sun, clean, empty, full of potential. A blank hive is like a blank page. Anything can happen. And knowing your luck, it absolutely will. You've barely finished your morning tea, an herbal infusion that tastes like regret, boiled socks, and maybe a hint of elderflower, when there's a knock on your door. A knock is never a good sign. No one knocks in medieval villages unless they need something, have something to complain about, or, worst of all, want to trade advice. You open it slowly. It's Brother Matthias, cloaked, bald, smelling faintly of beeswax and old parchment. He smiles in that gentle, slightly judgmental way only monks seem to master. "Ah," he says, looking you up and down. "Still in your sticky apron, I see." You nod. "Still in your robes." Touché. Turns out, he's here with a request. The monastery's bees aren't producing at all. No honey, no wax, just vibes. And not good ones. And so, as the local bee whisperer, a title you neither chose nor appreciate, you've been summoned. You follow him uphill through dewy grass and judgmental geese. The monastery looms ahead, cold stone, tall windows, and the faint smell of boiled barley wafting from the kitchen. The monks have a small apiary tucked behind the herb garden, and by small, you mean tragically underfunded. 4 battered skeps, all tilting at strange angles like they're ashamed to be there. You kneel beside the first one and listen. Nothing. You crack it open. The combs are shriveled, dry. A few sluggish bees crawl along the edges, their wings dull, their eyes glazed. You check the others. Similar scenes. It's not disease. It's not moths. It's just neglect. "Do you even feed them?" you ask. Brother Matthias clears his throat. "We read them psalms." Ah, spiritual nourishment. Historians still argue whether monks in the Middle Ages truly believed bees could be sanctified. Some accounts mention bees kept near relics, others note hymns sung in the apiary. A few even suggest that bees could be taught to respond to chants. None mention sugar water. You sigh and set to work. First, you scrape away the old crumbling wax. Then you reinforce the skeps with fresh mud and straw. You point to the herb garden. More time, less monkshood, you mutter. They're bees, not alchemists. Brother Matthias blinks. Should we pray harder, pray less, plant clover? You spend the rest of the morning nursing the hives back toward usability. You transfer a few combs from your own surplus, carefully avoiding the ones with Egbert's fingerprints on them, and give the monks a small jar of honey to use as bait. By midday, the air near the monastery has begun to buzz again. Slowly, hopefully, the monks thank you with a bowl of watery porridge and a blessing for health of limbs and sharpness of wit. You suspect you'll need both. Back home, you collapse near your hives. Your knees are caked in mud. Your sleeves smell like monk bees, which are somehow more judgmental than regular bees, and you've sweated through your tunic again. As you sit there, rubbing your temples, your partner walks by carrying a bucket of water. I heard you converted some bees. You sigh. If they start chanting, I'm moving to France. That night, the skies darken earlier than expected. A storm's rolling in, slow, deliberate, the kind of storm that's been rehearsing its entrance all day. You rush to cover the skeps, layering old cloaks, nailing down thatch, building tiny straw roofs like frantic real estate agents for insects. Wind picks up, lightning cracks in the distance. The air smells like wet stone and the ghost of last summer. The bees, sensing the shift, retreat into their hives. You can feel the tension in the air, as if even the wax is holding its breath. Inside, you light a candle and settle by the fire. Outside, the rain begins, a steady drumbeat on the roof, on the clay jars, on your hastily patched bee roofs. You sip warm mead, courtesy of last year's harvest, and watch droplets race down the window. It's quiet, a rare moment where no one is being stung. Nothing is on fire. Egbert is presumably indoors. You close your eyes. The storm will pass. The bees will wake. The monks will probably write a hymn about you and forget to plant clover anyway. But tonight you've earned this quiet and a second cup of mead. The next morning arrives with a peculiar calm. The storm has passed. The skies are scrubbed clean. The world smells like wet soil and second chances. And for once, your joints don't hurt when you sit up. A rare treat. You step outside with a yawn and immediately hear it. Buzzing. Loud. Confident. Triumphant buzzing. You look over at your hives, and for a moment, you feel like a proud parent. The bees are everywhere, darting in and out, legs stuffed with pollen, wings shimmering in the new sunlight. One even lands on your nose, gives you a brief inspection, and takes off again like a tiny judgmental balloon. You stretch, trying not to pull a muscle, and start your daily rounds. Hive by hive, you check each skep for damage from the storm. A few thatch covers have shifted. Some muds come loose, but nothing catastrophic. You patch what you can with straw and elbow grease. At the last hive, something stops you. The honey, it's glistening through the comb like liquid gold. Dark, thick, and viscous. You stick in your collecting knife and pull out a sample. It drips onto your fingers, smooth and fragrant. You give it a taste, sweet, deep, with notes of clover, thistle, and possibly whatever Egbert's wife grows in that suspicious garden of hers. And then it hits you. Trade day. You'd completely forgotten. The monthly village barter market. The one place where all your bee-related suffering is supposed to turn into tangible goods like bread, oil, or maybe, if the stars align, a new pair of socks. You scramble. Jars. You need jars. You haul out the old clay pots, check them for cracks, and begin filtering the honey through cloth that was once white, now a shade best described as linen shame. You strain, pour, seal with beeswax. Your fingers move fast, sticky, and sure. You've done this enough to know when the wax is ready by smell alone. Your partner helps, labeling each jar with symbols you both understand. One slash for strong honey, two for mild, a dot for probably contains a bee leg. By mid morning, you've packed your cart, a rickety wooden thing with one squeaky wheel and a personality disorder. The jars are wrapped in cloth, the mead bottles are corked, the beeswax blocks are stacked like little bricks of golden soap, and off you go. The path to the village is muddy, dotted with puddles that reflect your ridiculous hat and increasingly damp shoes. Every bump threatens to topple your cargo. You mutter curses with every step and promise again to someday invent a wheelbarrow that doesn't squeal like a haunted mouse. At the village green, the market's in full swing. Chickens dart between stalls. Someone selling onions next to someone selling healing crystals, which look suspiciously like shiny pebbles. Children shout. Dogs bark. Someone's baby is chewing on a turnip like it owes them money. You set up near the well. Your jars draw attention quickly. People love honey. Always have, always will. It's food. It's medicine. It's a bribe for toddlers and a garnish for porridge. Everyone wants it, and not everyone can get it, especially not the good stuff. And yours is good, because your bees hate you just enough to be productive. Old Widow Berta waddles over, sniffs a jar, and immediately starts bartering. 2 eggs, 1 loaf, and half a bar of soap for your mildest honey. You nod. She throws in an extra egg after inspecting the jar's color and muttering something about bee-friendly moonlight. Historians still argue whether medieval folks fully understood how honey was made. Some assumed it was just gathered by bees, while others believed bees crafted it from sunlight or dew. Your favorite theory? That honey was celestial bee vomit, a divine regurgitation blessed by angels and vaguely filtered through flower guts. And to be fair, not wrong. By midday, your table's half empty. You've traded for dried herbs, a spool of thread, a sack of flour, and what might be a boot if you squint hard enough and believe in miracles. And then someone asks the question, wait, honey is made from what exactly? The man is tall, red-faced, and chewing on something that may or may not be boiled leather. He frowns at a jar. Do bees make it? Or do you squeeze it out of flowers? You pause. Say it. Say the thing. It's bee vomit. He blinks. Sorry? They drink nectar, store it in a second stomach, regurgitate it, chew it, pass it to their sisters, chew it again, and then fan it until it thickens into honey. He stares. You smile. They're basically tiny, flying, communal chefs with digestive-based recipes. He slowly sets the jar down and backs away. You sell that same jar 5 minutes later to someone who whispers, the more natural, the better. By the end of the day, you've traded nearly everything. You lug your rattling cart back up the muddy path, heavier in flour, but lighter in jars. You're exhausted. You're sticky. You smell like a medieval bakery rolled through a herb garden and crashed into a goat. But you've done it. You've turned bee spit into bread. And honestly, you're kind of proud. You return home just as the sun begins to dip behind the hills, painting the sky in streaks of honey and ash. Fitting, really. Your cart creaks to a stop near the cottage, and you just stand there. Your arms ache. Your knees have staged a full mutiny. One of your feet appears to have fused permanently to your boot, and you're pretty sure there's still honey in your eyebrow from a leaky jar that betrayed you mid negotiation. But you're home. Your partner emerges from the doorway, wiping hands on an apron. Trade day? You nod. I lost 2 jars, gained 3 loaves, and explained bee vomit to a man who may never recover. They raise an eyebrow. So, the usual. You unpack slowly. The flour goes in the barrel. The herbs hang by the window. A small bundle of dried plums is tucked away for emergencies, or more likely, a midwinter pastry experiment that ends in regret. After dinner, a simple stew that miraculously contains 0 bees, you head outside to check the hives one last time. The air is cooling, thick with that damp, early autumn smell, crushed leaves, chimney smoke, and the unmistakable hint of your neighbor's cheese experiments going horribly wrong again. You move from skep to skep, listening, feeling. The hives are strong. The bees are fattening up for winter. You can hear them inside, the soft churning hum of wings and warmth and storage. You spot one worker bee crawling near the entrance of a hive, antennae twitching. She stumbles slightly, then rights herself and climbs inside, tired, just like you. You sit down on the stump near your hives, the one shaped vaguely like a chair and almost certainly housing a family of spiders. It's your favorite thinking spot. Your knees hate it, your back hates it. But your soul? Your soul sighs in relief. You look at your hands, scarred, calloused, perpetually stained with wax, but strong, capable. And then you remember, tomorrow is the feast day, Saint Modamnoch, patron of beekeepers, slightly fictional, often forgotten, and widely rumored to have smuggled an entire hive onto a boat by praying it into silence. You smile. Every year, you try to honor him in your own way. No elaborate rituals, no processions, just a little wax figure, shaped with clumsy fingers and warm palms, set beside the hearth. Sometimes a bee lands on it. Sometimes it melts too early. Once, a chicken ate it. Theologically confusing that year. So tonight, you gather a small ball of wax and begin to mold. It's not perfect, it never is. He ends up looking more like a worried monk wearing a sack than a saint of apiaries. But the intention's there. You place him beside the fire and whisper a few words. Nothing fancy, just thanks for the bees, for the honey, for the bruises that mean you're still trying. Historians still argue whether saints like Madomnak ever existed or whether he was a local legend puffed up by desperate monks trying to justify why their bees kept abandoning them. Either way, you like the story. The idea that someone out there, human or holy, looked at a swarm of bees and said, "Yes, you'll do nicely." Before heading to bed, you check on your new skep, the one you finished weaving days ago. It's dry now, firm, balanced. You give it a gentle pat and feel oddly proud, like a sculptor, or a parent, or a very tired insect landlord. Back inside, the fire crackles low. You slide under the wool blanket, still faintly scented with smoke and time, and close your eyes. For a moment, all is quiet. Then, psst, your eyes snap open. Somewhere a bee is loose in the house. You sit up slowly. There it is, buzzing near the rafters, bumping into shadows, sounding equal parts, lost and mildly offended. You light a candle, cup your hands, and begin the slow, ridiculous dance of catching it. Eventually, you coax it onto a spoon with a smear of jam, carry it to the window, and gently release it into the night. It hovers for a second, then vanishes. You stand there, candle in one hand, jam in the other, and whisper, "You're welcome." And for once, no one stings you. It's the middle of the afternoon when the buzzing changes. You know the normal hum of your hives, like you know your own heartbeat. Steady, comforting, occasionally annoyed, but rarely dramatic. But today, the tone is sharper, angrier, a higher pitch, like a choir of tiny, furious kettles about to boil over. You drop the bucket you were using to fill the water trough and sprint toward the hives, already muttering a desperate prayer to every bee related deity, known and possibly invented. And then you see it, wasp. No wasps. A small, vicious cloud of yellow striped raiders is hovering near the weakest skep, slipping in and out of the entrance like burglars on a lunch break. They move with sharp precision, stinging guards, tearing open comb, and dragging out bee bodies like trophies. You flinch as one zips past your ear, another smacks into your cheek and bounces off, presumably insulted by your face. Wasps, unlike bees, don't die when they sting. They just keep going, like medieval knights with wings and zero chill. You rush to grab your anti-wasp gear, which consists of a branch, a clay pot, and sheer rage. You wave the branch like a deranged tree spirit and manage to smack a few mid-air. The pot, you slam over the skep entrance, blocking the invaders temporarily. Inside the hive, chaos reigns. Your bees are swarming defensively, but they're outnumbered. It's not a fair fight. Bees defend, wasps destroy. And this time, the wasps have the upper wing. You lift the skep slightly, just enough to slide in a piece of cloth soaked in strong vinegar, a trick learned from a traveling tanner who swore it repels all foul-winged things, including devils and in-laws. The wasps retreat slowly. Buzzing in frustration, they rise and scatter, off to torment someone else's afternoon. You sit in the dirt, panting, cheeks flushed, one sting on your collarbone and another on your palm. You feel like a bruised pear, but the hive is safe, for now. Historians still debate how medieval beekeepers dealt with predators like wasps, mice, and even honey-loving bears. Some say they used traps or smoke. Others believe certain herbs, like mint or wormwood, were planted nearby to deter invaders. You? You mostly use shouting and luck. After recovering with a mug of mead and a mildly burnt honey cake, courtesy of your partner's attempt at experimenting with spice, you head back out to inspect the hive. The damage isn't catastrophic. Some comb is torn, a few drones are missing, but the queen seems untouched. You gently lift a frame, see her crawling majestically across her court, and let out a sigh you didn't realize you were holding. She lives. That night, as a preventive measure, you line the entrances of the weaker hives with crushed mint and ash. You reinforce the lids, sprinkle dried lavender around the base, and place a small wooden carving of a bear with a very disappointed expression nearby. Your own version of psychological warfare. You also catch yourself whispering to the bees. Not full conversations, just small reassurances. You've got this. Good fanning today. Yes, I saw you sting that wasp in the eyeball. Heroic. Your partner walks by. Talking to them again. You nod solemnly. They're unionizing. I'm just trying to stay on their good side. The evening settles in slow and syrupy. You sit on your stump, now patched with a cushion your partner made from a rag and questionable stuffing, and watch the sun drop behind the trees. From a distance, you hear Egbert yelling at his geese. Again, you look toward the hives. The buzz has returned to normal, calm, deliberate, occasionally rude. and something inside you unclenches. It's strange, this life. You fight tooth and nail for something so small, a spoon of honey, a patch of wax, the quiet hum of order restored. But here, surrounded by straw domes and creatures that could absolutely ruin your day if they chose to, you feel safe. You head inside, wash the sting on your palm with vinegar, and press a wax salve to your bruised collarbone. The scent of propolis fills the room, sweet, spicy, a little medicinal. You crawl into bed, limbs heavy, thoughts light. And just before sleep takes you, you hear it. One lone bee, buzzing lazily across the rafters, circling once, then twice, before settling into some unseen crevice, maybe keeping watch, maybe just lost. Either way, you smile. They're still here, and so are you. The first frost creeps in like a secret. You don't see it arrive. No trumpet fanfare, no dramatic thunderclap, just a slow silvering of the grass one morning, like the earth exhaled in the night and forgot to take it back. Your breath clouds as you walk. The air smells like ash, pine, and something sharp, like iron or the first page of winter. This is when the real work begins. You move from hive to hive, checking each one like a worried innkeeper before a snowstorm. Are they sealed? Is the straw intact? Did any of the lids blow off in last week's wind tantrum? You tighten mud seals, stuff gaps with moss, and reinforce the outer walls with clay and whatever dignity remains after falling into a wheelbarrow yesterday. Bees in winter aren't dead, just busy in a different way. They cluster tightly around their queen, vibrating to keep warm, burning through stored honey like tiny furry space heaters. The outside bees, those on the edge of the cluster, rotate inward as they chill. It's a survival ballet with no music, no conductor, and thousands of dancers, who all somehow know their part. You press your ear to the side of the hive. Quiet but steady. They're alive. You smile, then you frown, because the next hive, too quiet. No hum, no warmth, just stillness. You open it gently. Inside, a dead cluster, frozen, silent. Their little legs curled inward, their bodies dusted with frost like sugared almonds. You spot the queen near the center, still surrounded by her court, loyal to the end. Your chest tightens. This happens sometimes. A cold snap, a shortage of food, a tiny miscalculation, and suddenly, an entire colony collapses in silence. You scoop them out one by one, place them in a small basket lined with cloth, and carry them to the edge of the field. There's a patch of clover there, long gone to seed now, but it feels right. You bury them gently. Your partner watches from a distance. No words, just a hand on your shoulder when you return. You did what you could. You nod, but it still feels like a failure. Later, you mix sugar and water, creating a thick syrup. You place it near the entrance of the weaker hives, on small wooden boards, dusted with flour to stop ants. Feeding bees in winter feels strange. It's like bringing soup to a thunderstorm. But it works. It helps. And sometimes that's all you can do. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers routinely fed their bees or left them to their fates. Some evidence suggests they kept backup stores of honeycomb for emergencies. Others mention prayer and resignation. You do both, and then some. You also mutter things like, "Eat this," or "So help me, I'll start talking to the wasps again." That night, you dream of buzzing. Not angry buzzing, just the soft kind, like a lullaby played on wings. You wake to snow. Not much, just a dusting. Enough to turn the world white and quiet. The hives are blanketed in it, looking like strange little huts for gnomes with poor insulation. You clear the tops gently. Snow's not the enemy, moisture is. You can handle cold. But damp kills. You make rounds each day now, morning and evening. You listen, you check, you worry. You boil old comb into candles. Their flicker warming your cottage even if the fire doesn't reach your toes. You patch old gloves. You carve new entrance plugs to keep out mice who think beehive is a synonym for warm buffet. You ration the honey, not for you, for them. You eat oats. They get gold. It's worth it because every day one hive buzzes, that's one more chance to start over. By now, winter has settled deep into the bones of everything. The days are short and blue edged. The nights are long and full of noises that make your dog whimper and your chimney groan like it remembers warmer centuries. Snow piles against the cottage door. Ice creeps up the window panes in delicate, unnecessary filigree. And the bees? Still inside, still waiting. You press your ear to the hives every morning like a priest listening for a miracle. Sometimes you hear that faint, blessed hum, other times just wind. You knock gently on the straw, whispering things like, just checking in, no pressure. Occasionally, you hear a reply, a soft shift, a single buzz, like someone rolling over in bed and grumbling, 5 more weeks. Inside, you keep busy. You melt wax for candles, which are now your most reliable source of light and mood. You carve simple figures for trade. You even start writing down bee related sayings, imagining a future where people ask you things like, what did beekeeping teach you about life? Answer, that hot wax, like ambition, looks harmless until it touches skin. One afternoon, you get a visitor. It's not Egbert, which is disappointing because you had a particularly good joke about his frostbitten turnips. It's a boy, young, nervous, boots too big, coat too small, face red from the cold. Are you the bee person? He asks, clutching his hat. You nod. He shifts awkwardly. My gran says you know things about stings. She got stung last summer, swelled up like bread left too close to the fire. You nod again, this time slower. And she's okay? Only complains about it every day. So, very okay. He explains that they've found a strange buzzing under the floorboards. His eyes are wide. Could be demons, he offers helpfully. You put on your boots. Turns out it's not demons, it's bees. Not your bees, wild ones. Somehow, a colony has taken up residence beneath the wooden floor of the old cottage near the edge of the village. A risky spot, vulnerable to cold and predators. But bees are stubborn and occasionally terrible at location scouting. You kneel and listen. The hum is faint, but unmistakable, alive. You don't have the tools to extract them in winter, and to disturb them now would be a death sentence. So instead, you teach the boy how to help them survive. You pack warm mud against the outer wall. You drape a cloth near the floorboards to block drafts. You leave a jar of thick syrup just outside their flight path. And then you leave a note for the family that says, in rough handwriting, bees here, do not set fire. Thank you. They seem grateful. You think the bees are too. Historians still argue how often wild bees were adopted into managed hives. Some say medieval beekeepers lured them with empty skeps and baited comb. Others claim they let them be, pun intended, and simply raided the honey when needed. You lean toward the first theory, mostly because it involves less climbing under buildings. You walk home slowly that day, snow crunching beneath your boots. The air bites at your ears. Your gloves are stiff with wax and wear, but your heart, oddly warm. You light a candle that evening and set it in the window, a tiny beacon against the dark. Not for travelers, not for saints, just for bees. or anyone who might be listening. The hives outside rest under their blankets of snow. Inside, the bees huddle close, wings tucked, bodies trembling in harmony, tiny engines of warmth against the cold. You picture them like that, little clusters of fire, holding out, just like you. Spring arrives, not with a trumpet, but a sneeze. It tiptoes in through thawed soil and bird songs, with a breeze that smells faintly of damp bark, sheep wool, and the suspicious optimism of things trying to bloom. You spot the first crocus poking through the crust of winter, like a polite stranger at a rude party. And you, brave beekeeper of mud and madness, emerge from your hibernation ritual, which mostly involved mending socks, swearing at firewood, and making questionable root vegetable stews. The snow has receded into pathetic little piles, mostly hiding under the north facing side of the cottage like it's embarrassed to still exist. The hives, for the first time in months, are visible without a shovel. You approach the first skep, hand to straw, ear to hive, buzz. Oh, thank the saints. You practically sag into the dirt. You make your rounds. 6 hives alive. 1 weak, 1 silent, but 6 alive. It's more than you dared hope. Your partner finds you hugging a hive. I don't want to interrupt whatever's happening here, they say gently. You wipe your eyes. They made it. And for a moment, the quiet hum of survival feels louder than any choir. But there's no time for sentiment. Not really, because spring means swarming season is coming, and fast. And your job, once again, is to prepare for chaos. First, inspection. You open the hives carefully, comb by comb, evaluating everything like a picky landlord with a very sticky lease agreement. Brood pattern, healthy. Stores of honey, a little lean, but passable. Drones, already loitering like teenagers behind a tavern. And the queens, regal, fat, mildly offended at your intrusion. You feel a surge of pride. You got them through winter, and now they're ready to explode, not metaphorically, literally. Bee populations double fast in spring, and once that hive gets too full, Swarmageddon. You start weaving 2 new skeps. Your fingers haven't forgotten the rhythm. Coil, stitch, tug, over and over, straw brushing against skin, warm from sun and purpose. You also repair your smoker. It fell off a shelf in January and hasn't looked you in the eye since. A new bit of moss, some dry sage, a little beeswax to seal the lid. It hisses to life with a sigh, like it's forgiven you. Maybe. Historians still argue how much early beekeepers controlled spring swarming. Some believe it was all chaos and luck. Others point to clever tricks, like clipping the queen's wings, or stacking empty skips to lure wandering colonies. You believe in a bit of both, some planning, and a lot of yelling. The days grow longer, warmer. The first dandelions pop like yellow stars in the grass, and suddenly your hives are humming with activity. Bees flying in with pollen pants so full they waddle. Bees doing waggle dances, so enthusiastic you fear someone's going to throw out a hip. It's beautiful. It's terrifying because you know what's coming. And one day, there it is, a swarm. It starts small, a few bees flying higher than usual, then more, then hundreds, then thousands. They pour from the skep like water with wings, spinning into the sky in a golden tornado of determination and poor timing. You grab your gear, smoker, basket, the tall hat with a hole in it, and you run. They settle, of course, because they always do. This time, in an apple tree, because of course it's the tallest tree. And of course, your ladder is still being used by Egbert for something deeply unrelated, like goose negotiation. You climb a barrel instead. The swarm pulses gently, a throbbing mass of buzzing, dripping from the branch like an angry chandelier. You smoke them lightly, not too much, just enough to say, "Hello, I come in peace." Then, shake. They fall, mostly into your basket, some into your sleeve, one down your back. You don't scream, you hum. A low, tuneless melody your mentor once taught you. If you hum, they'll think you're one of them. Probably not true, but the alternative is screaming, and you're trying to avoid another village incident. You get the swarm into the skep, plug the entrance, and sit down in the grass. Heart racing, hair a mess, one sting on your ankle, but you did it. Another colony, another start. You whisper, "Welcome home," and just like that, spring is real. With the new swarm tucked into its straw walled honeymoon suite, your bee season begins in earnest. And by earnest, we mean endless. Days blur together into a rhythmic dance of tending, mending, sweating, swearing, and, when the stars align, stealing a spoonful of honey straight from the comb while no one's watching. You always pretend it's quality control, but really, it's survival. The hives are humming. The air is thick with wings and ambition. Your garden has become a buffet for buzzing guests. Lavender, borage, thistle, and that one experimental herb your partner planted that smells like wet socks. But the bees seem to love it. But with abundance comes drama. It starts when you notice the wobble. One hive is unsteady, not physically, emotionally. You feel it before you see it. The workers are irritable. The guards are extra aggressive. Even the drones seem confused, bumping into things like drunk uncles at a wedding. You crack it open, and there she is, or rather was. The queen is gone. Maybe she died. Maybe she was ousted. Maybe she simply packed up and flew off with the medieval equivalent of a self help scroll and a younger drone. Regardless, the hive is queenless, which means they know, and they are panicking. But here's the marvel: they don't give up. Immediately, the workers begin choosing larvae to raise as potential queens. They build queen cells, larger, elongated, waxy thrones. They begin feeding these lucky few royal jelly, that mysterious, protein rich, magical goop that turns a regular baby bee into Her Majesty the egg layer. You marvel at the order, the calm amidst the chaos, and you pray at least one of them makes it, because if not, the whole hive could collapse. Historians still debate how much medieval beekeepers understood about queen rearing. Some suggest they noticed the larger cells and associated them with swarms or hive health. Others believe the concept of a single bee ruling the colony didn't take hold until later. But you know, you've seen it. You've watched what happens when the queen is strong and when she's not. You keep a close eye. Day by day, the queen cells grow. You resist the urge to peek inside. That's how you ruin everything. And you've already ruined enough this month, including one clay jug, two pairs of socks, and Egbert's dignity in a heated bee related argument you do not regret. Finally, the cells begin to open. You catch a glimpse of her. Fresh, shimmering, slightly confused. The new queen. She's bigger than the others, moves differently, commands attention with her mere presence. You silently salute her. Then, the real test: her maiden flight. She must leave the hive, find drones from other colonies, mate, return, alive. You pace the yard like an anxious parent outside a school recital. She's gone for hours, and just when you're preparing an awkward eulogy, she returns, wings intact, mission accomplished. The hive calms overnight. The workers settle. The drones go back to bumping into things. Balance is restored. You take that evening off, sit by the fire with a cup of weak mead and a chunk of bread that might once have been soft. Your partner joins you, holding their own drink and a blanket that smells faintly of beeswax and sheep. New queen make it? They ask. You nod. She's got attitude. I like her. They raise their cup. To powerful women raised in jelly. You clink cups. The fire crackles. And for the first time in weeks, your shoulders unclench. Tomorrow, you'll check her egg laying pattern, inspect the wax, watch for mites. But tonight you rest because the queen is home, and so are you. You knew this day would come. You just didn't expect it to come wearing Egbert's oversized tunic and asking far too many questions about bee socks. Your nephew has decided he wants to learn the trade. It begins, as all ill advised adventures do, with curiosity and misplaced confidence. He shows up at your door with a homemade veil fashioned from an old fishnet and something that may have once been underpants. You open the door, you blink, he grins. I'm ready. You consider the many ways this might go wrong. You also consider the many ways in which a spare pair of hands could help, especially now that the summer sun is turning your bones to soup. So you agree, with one condition. You do exactly what I say. He nods. He does not do exactly what you say. First lesson, the smoker. You explain its importance. The subtle art of calming the bees with just the right mix of fuel, breath, and prayer. He listens attentively, then packs the smoker with damp grass and something that might have been cheese. It smells like betrayal and smolders like a curse. The bees are not amused. Lesson 2. Approach. You demonstrate slow, deliberate movements. No sudden gestures. No flailing. He flails. Within seconds, 3 bees are in his tunic and one is investigating his ear canal. He panics, runs into a bucket, and nearly takes out your best skep. You rescue him with a firm yank and a sharp, stop waving your arms like you're negotiating with birds. Later, you sit him down, hand him a salve, and let him sulk. This is harder than it looks, he mumbles. You nod. Everything important is, and he stays. To your surprise, he doesn't quit. Not after the stings, not after dropping an entire honeycomb and being followed by bees for the rest of the afternoon like a very confused flower. Not even after discovering what propolis smells like when warmed in the sun. Answer. If tree sap and bad cheese had a baby. He learns, slowly, clumsily. But he learns. He weaves his first skep, lumpy, lopsided, vaguely resembling a shoe. You don't laugh. Much. And when a passing bee lands on it as if inspecting a potential new home, he beams. You teach him the dances, the waggle, the round, the tremble. He asks if bees ever freestyle. You pretend not to hear him. You show him the brood patterns, the difference between drones and workers, how to spot the queen without getting poked in the eye by 1,000 tiny sisters. He asks if bees have favorites. You say no, but deep down you suspect they do. Historians still debate how beekeeping knowledge was passed down, whether through guilds, family lines, or simply by osmosis, and a high tolerance for pain. Most likely, it was all of the above. You, personally, rely on equal parts demonstration and shaming. By midsummer, he's improving. He handles the smoker like it owes him money. He can catch a drone midair and identify a queen cell by smell alone. He no longer runs when bees land on his face. He just sighs and asks if they're judging him. They are. One afternoon, you watch him transfer a swarm on his own. He's careful. He's calm. He gets stung only twice. When he returns, cheeks flushed, bees in his hair, he says, I think I like this. You hand him a jar of honey, warm from the comb. You've earned it. He grins. Can I have a hive of my own? You pause, then nod. And just like that, you're no longer alone in the madness. That night, you sit by the hives together. The air is thick with the scent of thyme and sun warmed wax. Bees drift lazily through the dusk, bumping gently against your sleeves like sleepy thimbles. You ever regret it? He asks. You think for a moment, only when I forget to plug my sleeves. You both laugh, and in the fading light, surrounded by hums, stings, and second chances, you realize something. The bees aren't just surviving, they're multiplying, and maybe, just maybe, so is your hope. It starts with a single drop. One fat amber tear of honey falling onto the floorboards. Then another, and another. You follow the trail like a detective in a very sticky crime novel, leading from the corner of your storage room to the barrel in the back, the one you use when you think, I'll bottle this tomorrow, and then promptly forget because a goose breaks into your compost or your nephew gets stung somewhere undignified. You open the lid, fermentation. The smell hits you like a wall, sweet, sour, rich, and slightly violent. A heady perfume of yeast and nectar and poor decisions. The honey has turned, not rotten, alcoholic. Congratulations. You've made mead. Not intentionally, not legally, not particularly well, but it's mead. And now your cottage smells like a very confused tavern. Your partner peers in. Did you mean to do that? Absolutely not. They sniff again. Smells promising. And so begins your next great misadventure. Accidental medieval winemaking. You siphon the mead into bottles, some glass, some clay, one repurposed from a mustard jar, and cork them with wax and hope. You taste a spoonful. Strong, slightly fizzy, sweet with the unmistakable finish of I should lie down. You give one to your neighbor. He drinks it, declares it bold, immediately starts singing to a wheelbarrow. You're onto something. Your nephew is delighted. Can we trade it? You're cautious. Only if no one dies. Trading begins quietly. One bottle here, one there, mostly to people you trust. People who enjoy things with character. Things that might explode slightly if stored improperly. Before long, it develops a reputation. Bee wine, they call it. Strong enough to knock out a monk. Sweet enough to turn insults into lullabies. Your storage room becomes a sticky mess. Every surface seems to attract syrup and curious ants. One day, you catch your dog licking the wall with deep philosophical intensity. You mop the floor, muttering darkly, but the mead flows, and with it, a certain buzz. Not just from the bees, from the people. They laugh a little more. They linger at your stall longer. They ask if you'll be making more next season. You probably will. One night, after a long day of beekeeping and bottling, your nephew throws a small feast. Bread, cheese, pickled things, and of course, mead. You sit under the stars, passing the bottle, retelling stories you swore you'd forget. The swarm that landed on the priest, the time you fell into a skep and tried to pretend it was intentional. The incident with the wax sculpture that melted into something very inappropriate during Mass. You laugh until your ribs ache, and when the bottle tips, dribbling onto the grass, you let it go, because there will be more, always more, of honey, of mistakes, of moments like this. Historians still argue how mead factored into daily medieval life. Some say it was reserved for the wealthy or sacred events. Others believe it was simply the best way to stop perfectly good honey from going bad. Either way, you're carrying on a long tradition, turning labor into sweetness, and sweetness into song. As the fire burns low, your nephew begins humming, something tuneless, something content. You close your eyes. The bees are asleep. The hives are humming. The bottles are sealed. And tomorrow? Well, tomorrow might be stickier. But tonight? Tonight is perfect. There's a particular kind of silence in late summer, not the empty silence of winter or the tense hush before a storm. This one hums under everything, trees, fields, even your bones. It's the quiet of almost done, a sigh held between breaths, a world ripe to bursting. Your bees feel it too. They fly slower now, heavier, purposeful. Their wings shimmer in the golden light, dulled slightly with dust and mileage. You watch one land on a sunflower so wide it could serve soup to a family. She clings to a petal, rests, then dives into the center like it owes her something. You've started the final harvest. It's the last time this year you'll open the hives, slice away capped combs, and steal what you dare without collapsing their winter pantry. It's a delicate game. Too little, and you're leaving riches to spoil. Too much, and they won't survive the cold. You open the first skep. The scent hits you, thick, floral, warm, like sunlit meadows trapped in wax. You work carefully, knife sliding through comb like a soft sigh. Honey drips slowly, reluctantly, as if it knows the season is ending too. Your nephew hovers nearby. Can I try? You raise an eyebrow. Last time you tried, we lost a glove, a spoon, and part of your dignity. He shrugs. I'm more mature now. You hand him the knife. He handles it with care, slowly, gently, and gets honey on everything anyway. You bottle the harvest together, labeling jars by color, dark gold, light amber, and that one batch that looks suspiciously like it might cure or cause disease. You'll keep that one for Egbert. Each jar carries the season, spring flowers, summer herbs, late blossoms. You line them on the shelf, sunlight catching the glass, until your kitchen looks like a cathedral of gold. There's still wax to render, frames to clean, skeps to patch. You're tired just thinking about it, but something in you stirs, a satisfaction deeper than fatigue. This is the rhythm now. The work, the waiting, the wonder. One evening, you host a modest harvest gathering. Not a feast, just bread, cheese, a bit of roasted root vegetables, and enough mead to make your partner speak Latin by accident. The villagers arrive slowly, bearing small offerings, a salted ham, dried plums, a wheel of something that once dreamed of being cheese, but settled on becoming a conversation piece. You light candles made from your own wax. The room glows. People laugh. People linger. And people thank you for the honey, for the help, for the jars that soothed sore throats and sweetened weddings. You pretend to wave it off, but inside you swell. Because the truth is, you've built something, not just hives, not just harvests, but trust and warmth. In a life full of wings and wonder, and the occasional sting to keep things honest. Historians still puzzle over the social status of beekeepers in medieval communities. Some were monks, tending sacred hives in silence. Others were peasants, scraping sweetness from straw. You're somewhere in between, a bit holy, a bit scruffy, often sticky. After the guests leave, your nephew lingers. He picks up one jar, your finest. Rich, dark, the kind that tastes like thunder and time, and hands it back to you. For winter, he says. You nod. He adds, and maybe for bribes, also valid. You sit on the steps, watching the stars blink awake. The air carries the faintest chill now, just a whisper, but it's there. Change is coming. The bees know, and so do you. But for now, there's still warmth, still golden jars on the shelf, still a few days left to hum. The first frost of autumn doesn't bite, it brushes. A gentle warning, a crisp hush laid across the field like a shawl. Your boots crunch through stiffened grass as you make your final round, the breath from your nose curling up like chimney smoke. The hives sit quiet, stoic, and round bellied from months of nectar. They're ready, or as ready as anything with a pulse can ever be. You tuck the last skep beneath a layer of straw matting, stuff gaps with moss, tie leather straps around lids so the wind won't get clever. You hum as you work, an old tune your grandmother used to whistle while she made salves and muttered about squirrels. It suits the mood. Your nephew helps now without asking. He's taller, more cautious, still gets honey on his elbows somehow, but there's a steadiness in his hands you couldn't imagine 6 moons ago. He carries tools, listens to bees like they're speaking in riddles, only he can almost, but not quite, decode. Do they know winter's coming? He asks. You pause. I think they always know. The real question is, do we? He frowns, as if trying to solve that one with pollen logic. You leave him to it. Inside the cottage, jars line the shelves like stained glass windows, each one a trophy, a memory, a miracle. You don't keep the prettiest ones. Those are for trade, for gifts, for healing. You keep the odd ones, the cloudy, the crystallized, the one with a beetle entombed like some kind of sweet amber fossil. Your partner is by the hearth, carving bees into candle molds. You sit beside them and start weaving a new skep. You don't need another one. But it feels right, a gesture of faith, because in this work, there's always next spring. Historians still muse about the rituals that surrounded beekeeping songs, prayers, little acts of devotion. Some dismiss them as superstition. Others believe the bees responded to kindness. You don't argue with either. You just keep singing. On the last warm afternoon before the freeze, you open one hive. Not to take, just to look. The bees are calm, drowsy, tucked in around their queen, warm and slow. You close the lid gently. Whisper, see you after the thaw. You step back and let the silence fold over everything. And for a long moment, you don't do anything at all. Just breathe. Just be. Because you've earned it. Because they have too. Because this life, sticky and stung again, is sweeter than you ever thought it'd be. So now, let's ease things down. The bees are tucked in. The hives sealed. The cold outside thickens like wool, brushing up against the door with fingers of frost and the breath of long nights. You're inside now. The fire is low, but steady. The walls are lined with jars of gold. The air is thick with the soft scent of wax and wood smoke and something herbal. Your partner insists is medicinal, but smells vaguely like regret. Your hands are sore. Your back? Let's not speak of it. But your heart is full. You lean back in your chair, feel the rhythm of a world that spins slowly, season by season, in circles of buzz and bloom and bare branches. In the distance, an owl calls. Somewhere in the rafters, a sleepy bee stirs, then settles again. You sip something warm, maybe mead, maybe tea, maybe both in a mug you carved yourself and haven't washed in weeks. The cottage creaks softly, like it's exhaling after holding its breath all summer. You smile, because you did it. You got through it. And just like your bees, bruised, busy, occasionally furious, but always returning, you'll rise again in spring. But for now, let your eyes drift shut. Let the warmth hold you. Let the hum fade into stillness. The hives are safe. The world can wait. You're home.